Is the narcissist miserable? Many of you like to think about the narcissist being miserable. Why? Because we made you miserable. We hurt and upset you. We might have left you in difficult financial circumstances, caused problems for you work-wise, damaged your health, both physically and mentally, caused problems within the family unit, perhaps alienated you from your children. We are purveyors of misery, and therefore it is entirely understandable, as a consequence of your empathic trait of justice, that you would like to see some misery meted out as against us, and to know that the narcissist is entirely miserable. Externally, you can look upon certain narcissists and rightfully conclude that their existence is a miserable one. The lower lesser, the archetypal loser, trailer trash, wearing the stained vest, who doesn't work, ponces off others, has the long-suffering intimate partner primary source, running around after him, cooking and cleaning, scratching in existence, lashing out with fists and heated tongue, an unsavoury individual with few friends, and family who would prefer to keep distant. He's unkept, unintelligent, odious. Indeed, that is a miserable existence. He sits there, festering in his own ignorance, scratching the pot belly, picking his nose, shouting, "Sheila, bring me another tin," as he quaffs another ale that has been purloined for his benefit that he won't have paid for. He'll engage in criminality. He may be in and out of prison. He's not liked. And yes, that is a miserable existence. But is he miserable? No. He is blinded to that misery. He doesn't experience it. He is what he is. He might bemoan his circumstances and believe that fate has dealt him a bum hand. But that's not his fault. It's not his fault that he's ended up in this situation because he never applied himself at school. It's not his fault that he always falls out with his friends so nobody wants to spend any time with him. It's not his fault that he's had to move 4 different doctor's surgeries for being rude and offensive to the receptionists when he's gone along to get his various ailments seen to. No, not at all, because his narcissism will never let it be his fault. And thus, whilst one will look at his existence and rightfully conclude it is a miserable one, does he feel miserable? No, he does not. He wallows in what he is like a pig in shit. This is the way I am, don't like it, fuck you. My way or the highway. Sure, I'd like more money, but he doesn't see that it is his fault. He shrugs because his narcissism will reject any suggestion that it is his fault, and therefore, since it's not his fault, he will not feel miserable. Take the upper lesser type A. Misery? Nowhere. And indeed, you might not even look upon such an individual as having a miserable existence. The Dervish of Energy, the whirlwind that turns up at a party and goes, "Woohoo! Yeah! Gear, beer, birds!" Shaking everyone's hand. Golden anecdote for everybody at the party. Kissing, groping, slap on the backside, cheeky wink. "Here, have some of my drugs. Sure, have you heard about my new car?" And then, 3 hours later, disappears. "Who the fuck was that guy?" asks somebody. "I don't know. I thought you invited him." "Never met him in my life," says somebody. And away he goes on to the next party, until, crawling home at 6 a.m. in the morning, he slumps into bed in his probably well-appointed apartment somewhere. Upper lessers are invariably, though not always, fairly successful. Does he crawl into bed, the sun peeping through the blinds, and think, "What a vacuous and miserable superficial existence that I live"? No, he does not. He just closes his eyes and falls asleep. And then he wakes, and off he goes again, like the Duracell bunny, bouncing around, full of this effervescent energy, never making any real, genuine friendships, never truly getting to know anybody, operating in a world of of superficiality, of tissue-thin depth. But it doesn't concern him. He doesn't sit down and think, if only I had a meaningful friendship with somebody. If only I could form a deep and lasting bond with somebody. That never enters his head. He's the type of individual that you will go to and go, mate, can I talk to you? My wife's left me. He'll go, brilliant. Let's get to the strippers. No pretense of emotional empathy. Every day is party day. It's all about the now. The ultimate hedonist. And therefore, on the face of it, he may seem to live the life of Riley. Money, girls, cars, flash apartment, able to do what he wants, travels wherever he wants, chases hurricanes around the world, whatever it is he chooses to do. And on the face of it, that doesn't look like anything close to a miserable existence. Although I know some of you would say, well, for all of that, on the surface, underneath he must be miserable. It's an empty existence, isn't it? Never really getting to know anybody, never having any genuine friends, never forming a connection with anybody. He doesn't care. Because his narcissism causes him not to care. Because to care would be to be accountable, and which would result in his control being threatened. Of course, when we come to the mid-rangers, they dole out the misery, and they revel in it. Oh, woe is me, my life is so terrible, everything has gone wrong, I've lost my job, my wife has left me, my friends don't speak to me, why has the universe cursed me, why has the world turned against me, whines the bitch that is the crybaby middle range type B. And although he gives the appearance of being miserable, he actually isn't, because it is all just part of the manipulation. He thinks he's miserable, he thinks he's mired in misery, but he actually isn't, because as a narcissist he's incapable of it. He creates the appearance of misery and embraces it as a manipulative tool. The lower lesser, as I've explained, does live a miserable existence, but he doesn't see it. His narcissism blinds him to it. The upper lesser type A doesn't really exist in a miserable existence, although you might think it that way because of the superficiality of his world. But similarly, he doesn't see it. He's unperturbed by it. Even those narcissists, and those will be the mid-range ones, that make a living out of whining and crying and bemoaning their setup, would appear to be miserable, but actually they're not. Because when you fuel them, you make them feel powerful. And when the fuel drops, it isn't misery that the narcissist experiences, but it is the presence of the emptiness, the abyss, the hole. Not misery. A different sensation altogether. Indeed, following your involvement with the narcissist, things can go wrong for narcissists. Particularly lessers, lower mid-range, middle mid-range, even upper mid-range. They can get sacked from jobs. Their health can be impacted. They can get arrested. They fall out with people. But remember, their narcissism operates to always blame everybody else. And therefore, although you might look at their life and think it is haphazard, because that is the collateral consequence of the way that the narcissism operates with regard to asserting control, when viewed by you, you could certainly draw some satisfaction from thinking the replacement has left him, he's been sacked from his job, his hemorrhoids are playing up, and his family aren't speaking to him, and his cat has just got run over. What a miserable, shitty existence. Absolutely. And if that makes you feel better, then so be it. Of course, focusing on what's happening to the narcissist, whilst understandable as a consequence of you being driven that way by your emotional thinking, isn't logical because it's a breach of no contact, and you should avoid, however tempting it is, to find out what's going on in the world of the narcissist after your escape or disengagement. You don't need to know. You can get all the answers from my work, rather than breaching the no contact and trying to find out what has happened to that narcissist. So on the face of it, they could be placed in a place which is one that looks miserable, but they aren't actually experiencing misery, because it is not something that we are designed to have about us, because it would affect our ability to control and gather fuel, and therefore we are not designed to be miserable. Certain of our kind can give the appearance of it in the same way that a certain of our kind can appear to be happy in order to manipulate you, or appear to be sorry, or appear to be compassionate, but it's part of the act. So is the narcissist miserable? No. Do they look like they're in a miserable existence? Yes, but the narcissist won't see it that way. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.